coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 845. Richard's here and we've got lots to fit in. We've got the 25th anniversary of Visual Studio, so we'll be geeking out a little bit on Visual Interdev and other things like that. Right, coming up to date, we've got the very latest Windows Insider builds and some of the new features coming to Windows 11, and an update came out tonight even for it as well. We're talking Surface Hub cameras and lots more, so let's get straight to Richard. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good, thank you. It's just us tonight because Gary's not feeling so well at the moment, so hopefully Gary will feel well soon.
Yes, get well soon, Gary.
And you can join us next week. Yes, plenty to be talking about this week. And I'm just seeing we've got one of your favourite things has just come down on Windows Update, a servicing pipeline test builders test update.
Oh, for goodness sake.
I know you really like these, yes.
Really?
Yes. So build 22579 has just got a mini update and not anything in there, but they say that I'm sure there's more to it than that.
Well, there must be. And to be honest, this is such a well-tested servicing pipeline now. You've got to wonder how on earth it is they managed to accidentally turn on File Explorer ads, isn't it? Because they've been testing this servicing pipeline non-stop for months.
Yeah, that's it exactly. So I'm not quite sure, but so you can get that down today. There is it's 22579.100.
Yep.
For those keeping score at home. And there will be a test on this at the end of the year.
Exactly. You know what? That would be a good question. Just how many servicing pipeline tests have they done? I tell you, there'd be no problems making this stuff work now because they have tested this servicing pipeline so much. You do wonder what's really happening behind the scenes there, because how much do you really need to test this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there was 2 last week, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we had 2 last week, and then we've got 1 tonight. So, yeah, we can be talking about that. I wonder if it's turning on watermarks.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, the watermark, the dread watermark. So this is, well, I mean, it had been in the dev channel for a while, hadn't it? This watermark, yeah. Are you talking about the hardware incompatibility watermark?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I mean, this has been a thing. I mean, we've kind of had similar things to this for a long time in Windows. We'd have some little nags in the bottom right-hand corner of the desktop to say, "Oh, activate Windows" or something. And I think back in February we spotted on the dev channel that they began to sort of, without any fanfare, or I don't think they've ever announced it, have they? That it's going to happen.
No.
They've begun putting a little bit of text in it to say, "Oh, this PC is not compatible. It doesn't meet the compatibility requirements," which, they have said throughout that if you do have a PC that doesn't meet the requirements, then it could well end up suddenly stopping working.
Yeah, and not get any builds at all. I think that was kind of the implication, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's now turned. So it appeared on the dev channel, and I think as of last week, it's now appeared on the release preview and the beta channels. I think people spotted it in build 22,000.588, which turned up last week, and I think that means it's going to definitely hit the consumer channel. So the actual release, the actual release version of Windows will be getting this nag text, which, I mean, I guess it's going to only really impact enthusiasts who've basically coaxed Windows 11 to work on their hardware that doesn't meet the requirements, because most normal users would never hit this because they wouldn't run Windows 11 unless the hardware could work, because it's there's scary warnings and you're more likely to buy a new PC, and obviously I can't imagine any enterprise in their right mind would ever try and roll Windows 11 out to a hardware that's not compatible. So
no, that's definitely not on your list of things you wanted to retry.
Absolutely not, because of course, as you said, there's no knowing when Microsoft will suddenly pull support, because they have said they're not going to guarantee support. So if you're an enterprise, you definitely don't want to put Windows 11 on machines that aren't on Microsoft's compatibility list. Whether that list is reasonable is a whole different conversation. And I have very strong feelings about that. but certainly, I don't really see that much of an issue with it appearing. I think it's going to only really impact enthusiasts who are bothered about it, really.
Yeah, and I've actually tried quite hard to get this message, and so far I've only not received it. So
did you get it on your Pi?
No, I didn't get it on my Pi. My Surface Go, which is on Dev Channel, doesn't get it, and I've got 2 VMs on this machine. I haven't mentioned the Surface Laptop Studio, have I, before?
But no, not at all, Ian. So tell me, have you bought a laptop studio?
Yeah. So I've tried it on the 2 machines. One's on Dev and one's on Release Preview, and neither of those picked that up yet. So I'm not quite sure what you need to do to get it. But maybe it's if you do an upgrade and then that triggers it or something. And maybe if because I'm already on these machines have had multiple builds on them or something like that, it doesn't affect it.
Yeah, or I mean, it could be A/B testing. Because again, this is a real good indication actually about the fact they don't put everything in release notes, because it's not mentioned anywhere in release notes. It has clearly begun happening for some people, so clearly a change has been made. It's a visual change, and yet nothing in the notes from the Windows Insider team, which I think is actually pretty disappointing, really.
Yeah, you think Kenny, you would want to see that. I mean, like you said earlier on, they have warned about it, so
yeah.
But that's not what's happening here. That's just this is a watermark, and it's a
exactly
new thing, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, it's not as though your PC stops working. It's just going to be there to say, well, you know what? But as you say, it's not appearing everywhere. I've seen it in a few places. I haven't seen it myself, and I run Windows 11 on as you know, on an Apple M1 Mac via Parallels, which is definitely not civil hardware, and it's not turned up there yet.
Yeah. So. Well, I'll try. I'll fire the Raspberry Pi up again and see if it appears on there, but it didn't do when I tested it. So
why don't you try it on your Surface Duo 1?
I haven't got that working yet. That is still a command line only application at the moment, or command line only device. It doesn't have a GUI. That's not because I wiped out the partitions at all. But yeah, like you said, it's one of those things. It comes up, and there's going to be very few people get it. I suppose the only time you might see it, if you ever saw it, is if you bought a machine with Windows 11 and you saw that. Then that you can take it back.
Exactly. Yeah.
And talking about the things that were tested, actually, I forgot to mention. You mentioned about the advertising. I did get a comment from Mike Parker, who said he hates ads as much as anyone, but when was the last time you bought a magazine from a newsstand without ads in it? At what price should a service be ad-free? If you have to pay 1 cent, should all ads be removed? All business models have to strike a balance. So I think it's a fair comment, and thanks, Mike, for commenting.
It's a good comment and well made. However, I will say it just leaves a faintly bad taste in my mouth. And yes, I did go off on a bit of a rant last week about it, but but that's certainly a fair comment. Yeah.
So, but anyway, thanks, Mike, for the comment. But I don't think we'll see the last of it. I know there's a bit of an outcry, and we've seen things like this happen before, where there's a bit of an outcry. Oh, it was done by accident, and maybe 6 months later it appears as a feature. So it doesn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if we see that returning back to Windows, because we've seen a few things like this crop up in the past.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, and just to use that magazine metaphor, obviously the reason you put ads in print magazines is to offset the purchase price. I mean, you could have a magazine without ads and it'd be a much higher purchase price. So if Microsoft are going to put ads in Windows, then fine, but maybe reduce the purchase price.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something Amazon do already, isn't it? You can buy a Kindle, and there's 2 versions, isn't there? One with ads and one without.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think just be transparent and upfront about it, really.
Yeah, I agree. And
also the ads, obviously, the particular ads here were for Microsoft's own services. So I don't know where third-party ads start to creep in, if that's going to come in via widgets or somewhere else. I'm not quite sure how it's going to work. But I mean, I'd be all for actually having more ads in the OS, as long as you had the option to say, well, you pay some money, you don't have them, you don't, or you pay less and you get more ads. It's kind of a sliding scale.
Yeah, or even Bing reward points.
Even Bing reward points, indeed. Yes, yeah. Whatever that source code may be now.
So yeah. Anyway, so that, I thought it was interesting. So I fully expect we'll see that return in one form or the other at some point in the future, and whether that be combined with the watermarks, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe we'll
sure.
get a watermark soon advertising. That was where we perhaps think of drawing the line then.
Yeah. Did we mention the dev channel build 22579 last week? I can't remember. That came out.
It only came out on Friday, didn't it? Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So that was actually, there was a few useful things in there. I mean, I quite like the USB drive, because you can now exclude USB drives from encryption. But I think the most visual thing in that build was definitely the fact you can easily rename start menu folders and things.
Yeah, that was, I really like that. In fact, I can actually I'll fire my machine up and we can have a quick look at that on my test machine. But yeah, that is, I think that was what was needed from. So when they released that feature, that was something you could definitely tell that was something that Windows needed. So there's my folders. I've got a web folder and an office folder. In fact, when the build applied, they just called folder because you couldn't name them in previous builds. But yeah, I do like that. So I think that is good. I did see someone suggested, wouldn't it be nice if you had that folder as an option on the desktop?
Yeah,
if you had,
good.
That a folder icon and then that expanded like that. But I doubt they'll do that. But that it's a nice idea. But yeah, I think those folders. It pretty much like it was in Windows Phone now, isn't it? But yeah, I think the folders work well. The start menu is evolving quite well actually, and that's the customization options around the start menu are something that I think I'll be glad to see hit release, because my like I said the other week, the Surface Studio laptop studio, I'm keeping clean the release version, but I actually like the start menu improvements, so I'm quite happy to see those make their way over. There was something else as well, which a new 3-finger gesture.
Oh yes, is that the thing to switch windows? Yeah, neat.
Yeah, I quite like that. So as a tablet user, I like that. I tell you what though, I've been on site in some meetings today, so I was using my Surface Go for taking some notes with OneNote, and I really do miss the swipe from the left as task switch. I've forgotten how much I like that on the tablet, because I've not attended many in-person meetings for a while, so I tend not, most meetings when you're on Teams, you're just using a laptop, but with the Surface Go, I like to be using OneNote in portrait mode and then swipe to switch back to the browser to read my email, and then swipe to switch back. But now you've got to swipe up to get the new start menu. In fact, you've got to kind of swipe once to get the taskbar up, then you've got to hit the task switcher, and then you've got to pick your browser, and then when you want to go back to OneNote, you've got to do the whole thing again.
I mean, if only if Microsoft had a decent sort of touch first OS. What a shame, eh?
and all these improvements that I really like for touch, but that swipe to switch applications makes much. I mean,
yeah,
how many times do you use widgets?
I mean, it's kind of. I mean, I'm no fan of Apple, but I do think their approach with a different iPad OS and Mac OS, while iPad OS is getting perhaps a bit bloated and over complex now, certainly back in the day when Windows 8 appeared, I almost wish that they'd kind of had a more desktop-y version of Windows 8 and a tablet version of Windows 8, because some of the touch first ideas in Windows 8 were just fantastic. They work really, really well, and I don't think they've really been bettered yet.
No.
But since most Windows users were using a mouse and a keyboard, it was a hideous experience. So it's a shame they didn't go down two different paths. But
just a little thing like that task switcher. I don't know how many people use widgets, but swiping like that. But I much prefer that but I suppose, like you said, not everyone's using it, so more people use it with
Yep.
a keyboard and mouse. But it would be nice to have these, an option somewhere, use task switcher or control your gestures. So swipe from the left. The default option is open widgets. Alternative option is task switcher. Just something simple like that. Probably should file that as a feedback hub.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, certainly all these ideas should go into feedback. There's no point complaining about stuff and not logging it, because I'm pretty sure the Microsoft doesn't hang on our every word.
Yes, you're probably right. Yes. There were some other bits and pieces. Some of the print dialog boxes have been improved for Win32 apps to use a new style. They ditched they ditched the new open with dialog box and go back to the old one. So
Makes sense again.
Didn't last long, but they said that was for performance issues. So the new open with looked a lot better. It looked like Windows 11 as opposed to Windows 10 or Windows 8 maybe, but that was introduced in 2256.7, but they've turned that off again now. So I guess there was performance issues. That's what they're testing for, and they'll return that at some point in the future.
Cool.
There was quite a lot of fixes in that build as well.
Yep.
There's still some issues around the taskbar and tablet modes and things like that, but
well, again, and it's also, it's worth pointing out, this is a dev channel build, so it's. I mean, I'm actually quite heartened to see the number of visual changes coming through now, because it does feel like there's more things happening after a very long period of nothing happening at all. It just feels recent builds have been stuff has happened in the dev channel now, which is great, even if it doesn't all make it through to the final release. It's good to see it happening.
Yeah, and I think this is internally known as Sun Valley 2. Just things I've read online, no inside information on that. And we know it's 22H2 because it says so if you go into system. Although that could well change, but that I think that's a label that it's got on there now is Windows 11 Pro 22H2, which is second half 2022. So my guess for this, it'll be signed off September, released October, something like that. And that's our one yearly update to Windows 11. Apart from the bits and pieces that they've released so far separately. They did mention that there would be a window where Dev Channel would synchronize with release preview in beta so that you could switch out, but that hasn't happened yet. So I don't know that is going to happen now. They haven't mentioned it, but they did write about it in a blog post a while ago. But it just seems it's quite a bit forward now, the Dev Channel, than release preview and beta. So
yeah,
maybe they'll switch beta to be these NI builds, release preview to continue to be what it is now, and the Dev Channel will become the next thing, 23H1 or 23H2 or something like that. There's always a point at some point in the cycle where they switch it from Dev to beta, and then that gets tested before it hits release preview and then gets rolled out. Now, did I mention that I've got a new Surface? I think I did.
Yeah, just a few times actually. Yes, yeah.
Yes, and I'm impressed at how good the camera is on it actually, and it's been looking good on the podcast. But you can buy a new Microsoft Surface camera now, can't you?
Well, you can, but only if you've got a Surface Hub. I think it only works with Surface Hubs, I believe.
And it's rather expensive as well, I think.
And goodness me, it's expensive. Yeah, it's. I haven't actually got the latest price here. It was quite a hot stop.
$799.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, $799. Yeah, so it's yeah. Ooh, it's a USB-C camera. It's great. It's a 12 megapixel camera. It's got a big 136 field of view lens. It's great. What's it? Just looking at the specs. Oh, there is this bizarre spec: 1 teraflop of compute power. I just want a camera.
That's like
thanks.
an Xbox One X, isn't it? That kind of, or an Xbox X Series S or something like that. Equivalent power.
But it's $800 is a lot for a webcam. It's an awful lot. But I guess if you've got a Surface Hub, then you're probably on short of cash. So it's not going to be the sort of thing you would stick on your monitor at home. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I was going to get one to just clip on the top here, but I think I'd probably not bother with that one.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, was it 12 megapixel? It still seems a 4K cropped image, but I've seen some of the supposedly software that, the AI that goes with it, where it does like tilt correction, doesn't it, and all that kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah. And sort of, it does person tracking of things and depth of field correction. So it's it's a really good bit of kit, but it is designed to be attached to a Surface Hub 2, which you would then stick in which is going to be on the wall of a meeting room. So you'd perhaps have it for your people in the meeting room, and so people who are working remotely can then see those people lovely and clearly on their screen. All those people see giant pasty faces from people's home offices.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, there is a definite thing now where there was a time when you could get away with not using your camera so much on calls, now on team calls, but it seems to be that everybody wants to have the camera on nowadays.
Is that a hint, Ian?
Yes, we're not working.
Exactly. No one needs to see the inside of my Lego shed. No one needs to see that at all.
Actually, I bet there's quite a few people want to see a tour of your Lego, but we could do that another day.
Well, there was a disaster actually last week. I finally finished off making my external tank and solid rocket boosters for the big Lego space shuttle, and I put it all together on its launch pad, and it was all there, but it looked a bit crooked. So I thought, I just need to adjust that very slightly. Oh. And yeah, it's quite a big pile of sad little bricks now.
Oh no!
Exactly. I'm going to start again and resist the urge to tinker.
Yes. Well, I suppose that's it, isn't it? It's that last one more brick on the top.
Exactly. And it weighed a ton as well. I mean, it weighed 6,000 bricks is very heavy.
Wow. And that's a lot. That's a lot of time, though, isn't it? That's going to do that.
Yes, Ian. It was a lot of time, and I may have turned the air quite blue in here. So if there was a webcam, I think the air would still be tinged blue right now.
Oh well, I still want to see a video tour sometime of your Lego. Get yourself a TikTok account and get it on there. There's probably a lot of Lego TikTok accounts, to be fair.
There's bound to be, and also I'm over 50, so I don't understand TikTok. I mean, I'm gonna barely grasp MySpace, so
maybe set up a new MySpace page then.
Exactly. I could do Vines. Does that count?
Oh, Vines, yeah, was that Twitter on that for a bit.
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm just thinking of all the old tech that's gone now.
The GeoCities. Is it
GeoCities? Yeah,
GeoCities.
Always good.
Yeah, tripod.
So yeah, but I'm just going back to that camera. So I mean, as well as that camera, there was some stuff for hybrid meetings. Microsoft published, I think it was their second survey of work trends, where it was kind of. I mean, it is an issue. I mean, this is probably going to be a bit corporate and enterprise, but there is an issue at the moment of people who are, perhaps starting to come back to the office, not wanting to come back to the office. And I think Microsoft correctly said, if you want people to come back, you need to actually give them a reason to make the commute worthwhile. Because had the blip that we had over the last 2 years, had that only lasted for 2 weeks, then fine. But it's been 2 years, and I think the message from Microsoft was people aren't the same people they were 2 years ago, and so I think the phrase Gerard Spataro that the Microsoft 365 boss said was, it could get quite messy if we're not careful when people start coming back and expectations are changed. So obviously Microsoft are in quite a good position, aren't they? Because they've got Teams, which I think turned 5 last week. Yeah, and they've also popped in mods for Outlook. It'll do RSV. You can do RSVP for meetings now, but say attend virtually as opposed to actually in person. And PowerPoint presentations where you can put a scary floating head on. You can do your own cameo in PowerPoint presentations instead of having to sort of present them in person. So lots of things aimed at more hybrid meetings and hybrid working.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned last week there's a Microsoft event coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yes, April 5th.
Yeah, and I heard that maybe we might get to see the Windows mail clients updated, and that's what we'll be showing off there. Sort of Outlook project that Microsoft are working on. So maybe a replacement for the inbox mail app, which has been unchanged since the release of Windows 10. I think it's more or less the same app as it was from the release of that back in 2015.
And it was bad then. So
yeah, and I must admit, I started to use it quite a bit now, but I tend to use just browser mail clients. For this stuff. Although at work, I tend to use the full desktop client of Outlook, but I don't want to add the full desktop client of Outlook on my own personal machine, so I don't really need it. So supposedly we'll see this new application, so that'll be interesting to see whether that is a leap forward, or if it is better. It tends to be now we get web apps that masquerading as desktop apps.
Exactly. I mean, I think it'd also be interesting to see what they do around Teams as well.
Yes. Yeah. And like you said, Teams has been such a massive growth in Teams. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know whether you've seen anything on like services like Zoom, which had massive uptake, massive percentage spikes of usage over the lockdown periods, and how their growth is continuing or it's plateauing, and whether Teams is following that same trend, or they're managing to maintain growth in Teams.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time I checked, and again, I do stand to be corrected here, but the figures for, I think, Zoom and Slack, they were showing a definite plateauing. Well, I'm not quite sure if that's down to people perhaps, the explosive growth has slowed because people are now, they've adopted their platform, or if it's down to increased competition because Teams is now, Microsoft does force Teams on many people. If you're a Microsoft 365 shop, it's actually quite hard to avoid Teams. So, but I've not seen much in the way of slowdown of Teams growth, apart from obviously, it's becoming more ubiquitous among companies that have Microsoft 365. So. Interesting. I mean, certainly Teams, I think Teams by some metrics has overhauled a bunch of its rivals. I still think the more interesting story is whatever happened to Skype. I mean, Skype.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just poof. Was just blown out. Was just blown out of the water by Zoom, which is almost the story of the last 2 years, really. How that happened. I mean, there is one issue with Teams definitely, and that is that could come up in enterprises, which is purely around sovereignty. And where that processing happens. I know in the EU, Microsoft is looking to implement the EU data boundary, I think. So your data and your messages will be processed on the EU, and that I think that could be a factor or a constraining factor going forwards as governments and large companies have to meet the needs of regulation, and also meet the needs of their users. And some services like Teams, which are cloud only, may not work for that. You may be looking at something perhaps like Matrix or something which you can have more control over what it does and where it does it.
Yeah, that's true. Funny you mentioned Skype. It's just like you said, it completely dropped off the radar there.
Yeah, and of course, what's unfortunate is the old Skype for business. That was a self-hosted thing, so you could have, as an enterprise, if you were feeling masochistic, you could have used Skype for business to do your messaging and had complete control over it. Whereas Teams, I don't believe there's any on-prem version of Teams. It's all purely cloud-based.
Yeah. And as an IT admin, I wouldn't want to host it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, exactly. It is a pain. It's just how you balance that. The cloud nature of, say, Teams with the needs of sovereignty. Certainly in some European nations like France and the Netherlands, they're getting very, very conscious now of what's happening where data's being stashed. So yeah, sorry, I'm getting quite enterprisey there, but it's a thing which I think even if you're an ordinary user, you need to start thinking now. Well, where is your data being held? Where's it being processed?
Yeah, that's true. And I know when you. I guess that's something that Microsoft can work on the granular side of it, because when you create an Azure client, or an Azure service, you can specify what region it's in, can't you? So you can specify it's in London or whatever. So there is that control going into it. Yeah,
I mean, there is that. I mean, one of the challenges with Azure certainly is have to be very careful where your data is being processed. So while you may have your storage in the EU, you've got to think, okay, where's my telemetry being processed? Is that being sent to service in the US to be queried, or run through analytics? So it's a minefield. It really is a minefield. But hopefully, as I said, Microsoft, they're doing the EU data boundary this year, I believe, in this year as well. I think Brad Smith promised it, so that should address some concerns. But I think a lot of companies like Microsoft need to also look at being a lot more transparent about what's going where and what's being captured and what's being stored and who can look at it. Yeah, end-to-end encryption.
Yeah, and even I guess this is where it crosses into the consumer space. In smart home stuff, you've got you want to know where all your data is being captured. If even something simple like your thermometer data, it's cloud-based, but where is that?
Exactly. Where is that service running? You only find out when Amazon or Google or Microsoft goes down. You think, oh, that's where it's running. Now I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't really know, do you? And that's a perfect example of when you find out. Once one of your services goes off, then you find, oh, that's where it's. I didn't realize it was using Amazon or Azure or whatever in the background. But a lot of the time for the smart home stuff, you really don't know. And I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago as well, like a victim of device obsolescence coming along for me. One of my first set of D-Link smart plugs, I can't recall now, WD214 or whatever it is, the very first ones that I got anyway, they're going out of service at the end of April, I think. So they're just going to stop working. So they're the ones controlling my lights outside in the garden at the moment, which come on at sunset and go off at 10 o'clock. They're just going to go off and never come back on again.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, perfectly working plugs. Yes, they're old. 6-7 years old, something like that. They still work.
I mean that's not good. Really, really not good. I mean, these things, you can't sell things. I guess this is perhaps where the IT industry needs to really learn some lessons, because you can't sell things as appliances and then kill them after 6 years. It's ridiculous. A household plug should last for 10 years, 15 years, even longer. It's just ridiculous to say it's going to stop working. But again, as you say, if it's hosted by someone's cloud on someone's server, then eventually that service gets turned off. We need Gary for this. Gary would have opinions.
Yeah. So I've got to go and swap my smart plug, which is, I've got other plugs here, but it's still, imagine if I'd invested and, gone crazy and had 100 of these devices around the whole house 7 years ago, to go, never mind the cost of replacing them, just going around and reconfiguring and reprogramming new ones and setting up your routines and everything else. It's inconvenient.
I was always very sad when my I used to have an Audi with a sort of a connector for an iPod/iPhone, and of course you can imagine what happened after a few years. I plugged the cable again with the phone and said, "Sorry, accessory not supported." I thought my car's an accessory; it's not supported. Is it? No, sorry.
And I think I suspect that was something that's going to get even worse with EVs, and that's something Gary definitely have an opinion on, because that is a whole bunch of services that's interdependent, aren't they? And that one key component. Say you keep your EV for 10 years. What happens if they switch off that cloud service that EV depends on in 6 years? What happens then?
Yes, I mean. EVs certainly, but cars are getting so complex. I think I was listening to Suze talking about how they're going to have Kubernetes running, on the car doing in-car stuff. I just thought, my goodness me, that's getting too complicated. I think I'll stick to my Binatone push button FM stereo in my Golf. Can handle that.
Yeah. Just make sure your tape player doesn't chew up your 1990 rave mix tapes.
Exactly. Yeah. My 1980s. Now that's what I call music 3, still working.
Oh, you're dead. I over there. I've got now 4 on vinyl.
I was
that doesn't work in the car.
I was talking with a team about some films, and for some reason there was one film came up that they were talking about, and I said, "Oh, yeah, I saw that film. I've got that soundtrack. In fact, I saw that film in the cinema." And it's like, "Oh, it came out before any of you were born, and then I felt sad.
Yes, well, that does happen to us all. Yeah, I'm afraid so. My kid, sometimes I mention stuff to my kids and like, what are you talking about? And they've not a clue what I'm. Yes, because it was.
But speaking of age, obviously there was as well as Teams being 5. There was another anniversary last week. Wasn't there? There was Visual Studio.
Oh yes, I forgot about that. Yeah,
25 years of Visual Studio. Wow.
Yeah, I can't. That does really feel like old, because I remember going from being a Visual Basic person to suddenly getting Visual Studio. Thinking, what the hell is all this?
Exactly. Yeah, 1997. VB6 wasn't out then. I think it was still VB4 or VB5. And so it came out, and you got Visual J++, InterDev, MSDN, InterDev, yes, InterDev, the MSDN, and then I think you can get versions that had C++, VB, and was it Visual Fox Pro as well? Yes, Visual Fox Pro. Oh, brilliant. Yes, I was, I did some reading up about it. And there were 2 editions. Professional came on 3 compact discs. Enterprise, 4 compact discs. Amazing.
Fantastic.
And these days,
I remember yeah, and I remember because it was VB4, then VB5.
Yeah.
So
because VB4 was the first. I think it may be VB5, because VB4 was the first 32-bit version of Visual Basic, and then and then you had VB5 where they optimized the executable speed, so it allegedly compiled to binaries, although they weren't. I don't think they were proper binaries. I mean, they were better than the kind of the intermediate thing you got with VB4, but they so you got a bit of a speed increase, but they weren't sort of super duper optimized if you'd done it in C++ binaries or Delphi. And then VB6, where I think they shoved in loads of web stuff and slowed it down again. And that, of course, was the last proper version of Visual Basic before. Was that 1998? I think VB6. So that came as part of Visual Studio 6. And then after that, you got the .NET, where everything had to have the .NET branding. And you got VB.NET, which was frankly awful because it just broke the compatibility so fundamentally with Visual Basic that. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was driven from there to C Sharp, because in case of I'm going to have to learn basically a whole new way of doing things. I might as well do C Sharp, and that was that. Yeah,
I got fond memories of that, because I did my MSDN, and when you did your MSDN exams, you had to pick
MCSD.
MCSD, yeah, sorry, that's what I did. And you had to have it's not elective as such, but you had to have 2 technologies, and I chose InterDev. I think I was the only person that did.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, so I'm fully qualified in Visual Studio InterDev. So if anybody has any InterDev questions out there, send them through to me, because I can't think there was that many people using it, to be honest. But I thought it was a brilliant tool. I loved it. But it just, that's the way. Yeah.
Was it kind of a jumped up front page, or was am I getting my wires crossed
take that
there?
Back. it was a web development tool.
So it was a jumped up front page. Excellent, good. I'm glad we agree.
It introduced the ASP.
Yes, yeah, ASP.
ASP.NET. It was ASP, yeah.
Yeah, it's ASP, because .NET didn't appear until the early 2000s, did it?
Yeah. So it was ASP and DCOM.
Oh, DCOM. Yes, I remember DCOM.
Visual Basic had the VB6 had the DCOM in it, but part of the MSDN exams, I had to create a solution that was web-based, but use Visual Basic components all tied together using ASP pages and COM Plus.
You see, the sad thing is we're saying, oh, this is so long ago, but you just know there's lots of beige boxes sat underneath people's desks in corporate offices, still running some critical app written in VB6 that no one knows about or dares touch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you do see things every now and again. You still do see some things that reference VB6 and.
I mean, obviously VB6 is long gone now, but the binaries still live on in Windows 11, because there's so many companies that have this one weird app they're never gonna let go of, and those binaries are still there. Even now, they're still there.
And I still think when you fire up Visual Studio and create a web app or an ASP.NET type application, you're doing InterDev work really there.
Well,
It lives on.
You see, I still miss the Visual Basic. Yeah, how quick it was to do stuff in Visual Basic. And I know, we're all about the Power Platform and low code and stuff now, but I still think that back in those days, it was still quicker to quickly bang up a quick, Windows app and away you go. Whereas now, this doesn't seem to be quite as quick and easy. But maybe that's no bad thing.
Yeah, maybe. Good fun. And I always enjoyed getting the MSDN magazines and things like that came with part of the subscriptions, proper magazines that you could actually sit and read. And they were good day. And of course, I think that was probably maybe the last thing that came with a huge amount of documentation.
Yes, it was great. Yeah,
it came with a book of everything.
It was a big box, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then from then on, they were just MSDN on the CD and
of course it's all downloads and
Google it. That's what it is nowadays. Between
the Studio 2022 and those versions, I mean, it's such a big bloated application. I mean, it's they've just added so many things to it over the years. It can do so much, but it just feels huge. It's almost a relief to go back to say, to use Visual Studio Code, which is a lot lighter, and think, oh, this is far nicer. If only I had a Forms designer.
I know. And that's where your VB6 comes in. Get to fire up that.
Exactly.
And it also included Visual J++ as well.
J++, which I mean, I recall that being pretty good, but I know it was got killed off, didn't it, because of the Oracle Sun lawsuit over Java and Microsoft doing naughty things when Microsoft wasn't the lovely company it is now, or at least was a few years ago. Maybe it's not so nice again. Who knows? But yes, certainly there was a lawsuit. I think part of the deal with that was Microsoft had to pretty much pull Visual J++. I think there was a Visual J Sharp for a while.
I think there probably was. Yeah, it was Visual J++ that came with that Visual Studio that I got the first time. But it was kind of thing. I installed it and thought, oh, what the hell's this? I'm not using that.
Yeah.
Get my VB6 back on.
Exactly. Yeah. So and of course now Microsoft is fully on board with the whole Java thing and JavaScript. So it's interesting to see how it's gone, but certainly Visual Studio 20. I mean, I did try and fire up the old version of Visual Studio. It's you have to say it's quite hard to one, get hold of it, and two, make it work these days. But it does seem so very lightweight now. So quick, so very fast. Whereas the current one, it's they keep saying, oh, we've improved startup time or whatever. You see, but it just does feel like a lot of lard. It really does. But then I guess if you find it lardy, go for Visual Studio Code or the many other tools that are out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why sometimes something like the what was the one I was using for Python for the microcode that I was doing? I forgot what it's called now. But that it's such a lightweight little coding tool that it just feels a lot different from using Visual Studio.
Yeah, definitely.
I actually need to get that back out again. And now my Christmas lights are down, obviously I can repurpose my light strip, which is down there, for something else. Maybe do with greenhouse.
I can tell you my latest Pi project, which I don't even know how to start right now. I got my project with the showing the trains on a map working, which once I'd worked out the basic Python, it was actually really, really simple. It was embarrassingly simple to make things turn on and off, and lots of the UK train companies and tube companies will actually publish. They publish interfaces we can pick things up and see where trains are. It's really quite cool, actually. But I'm trying to do a TI-99 thing, and obviously it's very easy to emulate old computers on a Pi, as you know. What I'd like to do is to have a separate thing on one side, maybe a touch screen, that I can choose which cartridge or disk I want to mount without having to drop out of the full screen of the Pi itself. And I'm pondering how I would do that. So I'm thinking the GPIO somehow can probably receive events. Anyway, so that's my current. I've made my life really hard with that.
Oh well, interesting to see how you get on with that. You may, or maybe some big physical buttons.
Well, exactly. I mean,
like a cartridge-shaped button.
Initially I thought, oh yeah, I'll just have some big old toggle switches. I thought, well, actually, what I'd like to have really is it's like a little mini touch, like I can sort of swipe up and swipe down, and or page up and page down and see all the various discs and cartridges that I could use, and say, mount that please, and then restart, and then away it goes. I mean, I can do that on the main screen, easy, just escape and then change the config files, not a problem. But I want to do that remotely and then have it as though I've plugged the cartridge into the console and it restarts. So that's my current challenge. I'm sure there must be a way of doing it.
I'm sure there will. Well, you get on with that and let us know. Let us know next week how you go on with it.
Badly, Naomi, very badly, and I've probably blown yet up yet another pie.
But maybe it's better than wiping and bricking a Surface Duo.
Yeah, this is true. Yeah, so is that de-bricked or are you fully bricked still?
Still fully bricked. Like I say, it's a command line device now.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, the thing is, if you can get to a command line or it does something, it's not bricked.
Exactly.
There must be a way of getting to a recovery somehow.
That's right. I can use the ADB bridge from the PC and get onto it. So it's all is not lost. I just need to get on with it.
Well, we can compare our progress next week.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So where can we find you and your Lego misfortunes?
Yes, I've spared Twitter the misfortunes, but yes, you can find me on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent. Well, I'm at Alex Dixon on Twitter. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Hopefully Gary's feeling a bit better and he can rejoin us. So, and until next week, we'll see you then.
Cheerio.